Okay, so we are going to kick things off. A very good morning to each and every one of you. Good evening, possibly, to some of our colleagues in the Eastern Hemisphere, or good afternoon. My name is Sharan Singh. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at Minerva Project. And it is a great pleasure to introduce you, or to welcome you rather, to today's version of Inside Voices. We are going to have a very dynamic and exciting conversation with two individuals who I and my colleagues at Minerva have had the pleasure of working with for some months now. But let me start off by formally welcoming you to the 7th edition of our Inside Voices series. This is the webinar series that we host by Minerva Project to really focus on conversations with leaders about the inside trials, tribulations, challenges, and triumphs of transforming higher education, something that is our core focus at Minerva Project. As I said, the discussion focuses around transformation, and we call it Inside Voices very specifically because we're trying to get the inside perspectives and inside scoop about what these major transformations are looking at. This is really about, sharing these perspectives with the wider industry and colleagues and building momentum at the sectoral level. As I said, my name is Sharan Singh. I lead the partnerships team at Minerva, have been here a little over 5 years, and I've seen the very interesting growth of our partnership ecosystem to now span almost all the continents of the world and, focusing from everything to creating brand new institutions, all the way through to working with incumbents to do transformational projects similar to the two that you'll hear about today. We're very fortunate to have two interesting and very, I think, progressive and committed to individuals to the transformation of higher education. The first one is Gonzalo Mendieta. Gonzalo is from, now you have to forgive my rusty Spanish, Universidad de las Américas in Ecuador. Gonzalo is joined by Edward Roekaert from Universidad Peruana de Ciencias. Is that correct, Edward?
Pretty close.
Okay, they'll introduce themselves very shortly. But what we're going to do is we're going to start off with about a approximately 40-minute conversation between Edward, Gonzalo, and myself, and then we'll open it up to a question and answer. I think today we're going to explore topics related to curricular innovation. There's a very specific focus of our chat, and really curricular innovation around durable skills in Latin America. These two prominent leaders have already been undergoing transformations with their institutions, and we're very fortunate at Minerva Project to be involved recently with both of their institutions around projects related to durable skills transformation. I would like to ask each of them to introduce themselves. So why don't we start with you, Edward? Please give a bit about yourself and your institution.
Okay, good morning, Sharan. Good morning, Gonzalo. Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to join you today, to be able to share with you what we are working on with Minerva. At UPC in Lima, Peru, I've been the president for the past 10 years. We've been working for the past 10 years on the digital transformation of our university, seeing how we can leverage technology for the benefit of our students. And now we're working on a very exciting project with Minerva. So looking forward to share what we're doing with all of you.
Thank you, Gonzalo. And Edward, sorry. Gonzalo, please introduce yourself now.
Good day to everyone. Edward, especially Sharan, thank you for inviting us to the 7th edition of the Inside Voices. It's really a pleasure to be here sharing some of the exciting initiatives that we're working at UDLA. UDLA is the leading private university in Ecuador. We're well known for innovation and research, but I think what characterizes the most is our commitment to student success. And I think what we're working right now, it's in the direction of that vein.
Great. So what we're going to do is, a bit about their institutions. At UDLA in Ecuador, there's 18,000 students, and they're focused very heavily on social mobility and social impact for their students and graduates. At UPC, which is slightly different, and actually very different in its student body, it's 70,000 students. And it's a similar deep commitment to social impact and innovation. And what's interesting is, despite having had very separate conversations with these individuals, there are a number of similarities between the projects that we're doing. And we're going to unpackage a bit of that as we go through today's session. So in order to start off, we thought that we'd just share 3 brief slides to ground everybody in a similar perspective. And so I understand that you would have each, the participants that is, received a copy of our durable skills paper. I don't know if all of you had a chance to read it, but today's conversation is going to focus around what we think is a really transformational opportunity for higher education in Latin America, based upon a durable skills intervention. And at Minerva and with our partnerships and collaborations, we think about durable skills, not just in terms of the individual skills themselves, but how we can group these skills together into broader competencies, the soft skills, or really the hard skills of today, critical and creative thinking and collaboration and whatnot. So we won't delve into this, although it's quite a busy slide, but this is what I was talking about. A concept, like a competency rather, like critical thinking, has many component parts, one of which, for example, is effective decision-making. But in order to make sure that students learn these core competencies and sub-competencies, you have to break them down into their component parts. And so from a competence at level 1 of critical thinking, you could go down to level 3 around things like decision selection or strategizing, or from a communication perspective, composition, organization, audience, and whatnot. And so when we work with a partner and the paper speaks to the need to identify and agree on a skills taxonomy, a taxonomy of durable skills, and to build curriculum around those durable skills. And finally, what you're doing, therefore, is you're then scaffolding these durable skills across the curriculum, down to the course level and down to the session level. And what we know from the learning sciences, decades of research, is that people learn best when there is very intentional introduction of concepts, spaced repetition of those concepts, and recontextualization of those contexts with ongoing feedback all the time. And so that's what this squiggly spaghetti diagram really looks like. You can take something like decision-making and break it down so you see it in multiple courses and multiple activities across multiple courses. So with that grounding, we could stop sharing the slides now, and I think we should jump straight into it. So Edward, I'm going to kick off with you. And before we talk even about the details of the collaborations and the projects that we're doing, I'd like to know about you as an individual. I had the benefit, along with my colleague, Will Sanchez, who leads our partnerships in Latin America, and Christine, who's on the screen here, who leads our solution design, to spend many, many hours with you, imagining a new future for UPC and imagining our collaboration. And we were incredibly impressed by you as a leader and your thinking and your commitment to transformation. So tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and really what is the initiative that you mentioned earlier that you're trying to achieve at UPC?
Okay, complex question. Hi, Christine, nice to see you. I believe that basically I've been in higher education for over 30 years. I've seen the power it has to transform a country's reality, and that's part of our mission at UPC. We want to contribute to the development, sustainable development of the country, and we have the great fortune of being able to do it through education. But in order to do it, we need to provide access. We need to allow students to succeed throughout their education so that they eventually can contribute to that transformation. And that is something, that purpose really moves us. That in one way or another is what wakes us up in the morning and makes us move forward. When we look at UPC as an institution, we're celebrating our first 30 years. We were founded in 1994 with a competency-based model, active learning and flipped classroom, something Minerva shares with us. But we have discovered throughout the years that it's not easy to deliver on that promise. We have moved along the competency-based model in such a way that today we actually do have the tangible evidence that demonstrates that the students are moving forward, that they are developing the skills. But what we're seeking to do through this partnership is to accelerate that process. We want to find a way in which we can get our students to engage further. We want to empower them. We want to make them more resilient. The newer generations tend to be, in one way or another, slightly more fragile. The pandemic showed that, and we want our students to be able to develop their skills, to have the pleasure of studying and finding that through study, they can change their own futures and impact basically the future of not only themselves, but also their families. So we're looking basically to find ways in which we can improve our graduate profile. We are doing relatively well. We have a 95% employability ratio. 97% of our students work in the discipline they studied, which in one way or another demonstrates that we are matching with demand of graduates. But working with our accreditor in the US, the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, we are constantly in search for a better way of doing things and doing things efficiently. So I'll stop there. I know there might be more questions and follow-up questions. So
absolutely. You know, it's very interesting that a relatively young university such as yours that is already achieving quite notable graduating outcomes is undertaking a major transformation. I imagine there are other universities in the room today who are dozens or if not hundreds of years old, and you're swinging very early. And I think it's the tenor of the time more than anything else. So let's switch to Gonzalo. Gonzalo, you know, although you are a certain number of miles apart from our colleagues over in Peru, you're also undertaking some major curricular innovation at UDLA. So tell us a bit about your own background and why you decided to tackle general education reform or durable skills transformation at UDLA.
Okay, so I've been in education, I think, all my life. Like, as a student, became a faculty member in the United States. I came back to Ecuador and worked my way out from becoming a dean, becoming a provost at another university. Then I became a provost at UDLA, and now I've been the rector for the past 5 years. You know, I have always the privilege to share many forums with Edward. And I think, you know, although we are different in terms of size, I think we are very similar in many aspects. And I think he had reflected many of the things that we have lived toward that. As I said before, you know, although we are very, very well known for our leadership in innovation and in research, even being a very young university, we are a little bit younger than say, but not by that much. I think our major commitment is always to a student success, and I think our numbers reflect that. You know, we have a great retention rate, a very extraordinary completion rate, and as Edward was saying, you know, our students go into the labor market with a lot of success. You know, they go in very easily. However, you know, we've been reflecting about this thing, you know, and if we only think about academic success or student success by this mark of just going into the labor market, I think we're doing great. But, you know, nowadays, in this changing world, I think every institution has to really redefine what does it mean to, you know, to have student success. And I think nowadays, you know, we think, well, just getting into the labor market is not enough. How do we develop skills that will make them succeed in later part of their profession, and above all, in their lives? You know, students are not just these widgets that we, you know, produce. They go into the labor market. Above all, they're individuals, and they have lives and families, and I think they have to be, you know, great members of society. So I think, you know, as Edward was saying, also, you know, we are also accredited by WASC, and I think with UPC, we're one of the few institutions in Latin America that have institutional accreditation by a U.S. regional agency, and also we pursue a lot of programmatic level accreditations, which, you know, is a testament to our idea of always thinking about quality. But we're also thinking about what is in there for the future. How do we move forward? And I think this has been, you know, the major drive of what are we undertaking right now.
Yes, very good. Well, I think there's something inside there about the long-term the student rather the commitment to the long-term success of the students, not just producing the graduate, not just in their employability, but their long-term life success and career success, and the understanding of the role of a university in ensuring that the required foundational skills are there for long-term success versus graduation rates and completion rates, which are the traditional metrics of success that we've all operated in. Maybe there's an interesting conversation we can unpackage around the new measures of quality in higher education. But before we go there, let's talk about why. You both alluded to why you're undertaking, you're innovative institutions. You're both private institutions that are US accredited in Latin America. You're young, yet you're undertaking major transformations. So back to Edward, why did you decide to focus particularly on durable skills? I recall from our early conversations, there's a range of areas. Even between Minerva and UPC, we talked about a range of potential interventions, of potential surgeries to try and create greater impact on student success. So why durable skills particular? And then how, after you explain why, do you plan on leveraging and integrating the durable skills intervention in terms of the rest of their educational journey?
Okay, excellent question, Sharan. Basically, we're convinced that a competency-based model, if it's well done, will guarantee students that they're going to be well prepared for their future. The pandemic has shown us the same was in Peru with social unrest crises, economic crisis, recession, that and now with disruptive technology like artificial intelligence that will disrupt disciplines all over the world. I believe we have to guarantee our students that they will be prepared for change. And just having the knowledge about a discipline, gaining that knowledge, being able to work around that knowledge doesn't guarantee that they will be prepared for that change. We need to guarantee that they will develop the durable skills. You present them very well in your white paper that you have shared with everybody here. Those are the skills someone needs in order to adapt, to become resilient, to be able to reinvent themselves through change, and guarantee that they will fall on their feet every time they're hit by some sort of disruptive change. Basically, what we're seeking to do is to accelerate the development of these durable skills in our students. We have been successful doing it across a 5-year undergraduate degree, which is regulated by law here in Peru. But we want to accelerate the process. We want our students to develop those skills early on, become more engaged. It should help us improve retention. It should help us improve graduation rates. But most importantly, it should help us guarantee that the students will be better prepared, better equipped for the market.
So what, if I can ask a follow-on question. So the way that you're doing it is that you're doing your surgical intervention right up top in the first semester of the program. These are 10 semesters that the students go through, and you're doing a very intensive adjustment of your curriculum in the first semester. They are going to focus the entire first semester on a set of courses that are basically creating a new operating system, in a sense, for them. So the question is, what happens for the next 9, Edward? How do you sustain, you're orienting them around durable skills in the beginning. I saw an interesting question from Bobby in the chat, and we can dig into that. I also, by the way, on the side note, if anybody has questions, feel free to drop them in the chat as we go along, and we'll get to them in the Q&A. But yes, Edward, what happens after the first 9 semesters, the first 1 semester in the following 9?
Like you mentioned, we're going to basically intervene our gen ed component and see how we accelerate the development of those durable skills in our students, especially the incoming students. But it is critical for us to engage everybody else in our institution, all the faculty that follow up semester 2 all the way out to the final semester in the program, because we have to be able to sustain what the students are able to develop after that first semester. So it is a transformational change that requires everybody to be on board, and it's a relatively large task. It's not easy to convince faculty to change constantly. We are accustomed to it. We are early adopters in general. Every time we see an opportunity to do something different that we believe is going to work and provide added value to our students, we jump on it and we try to implement that. But it is a relatively large project in terms not only of intervening a set of courses, but then working with the whole faculty and guaranteeing that everybody understands what we're doing early on so that they can sustain it throughout the program.
And you're taking in 16 to 20,000 students every academic year, correct?
Yes.
So you're doing this obviously at quite a substantial scale as well. So, okay, good. We're teasing the audience a bit, and I hope that this is provoking you to have some interesting questions. Gonzalo, so you're also doing a similar intervention around durable skills in the first year. I have a slightly different question for you, which is what are the specific skills? Well, why did you pick the specific skills, and how rather did you pick those skills as well? And why are they relevant to your students? Because, you know, there's any manner of skills taxonomy out there, from the World Economic Forum to you name it. Everybody has a taxonomy of durable skills that every student should learn in the future. And, you know, they're all more or less different permutations of the same set of skills: critical thinking, creative thinking, collaboration, communication, and whatnot. But you went through a process with us very recently, actually, in January, where we identified a very particular skills taxonomy. And so how did you go about doing that? How did you build consensus? I imagine that's probably a question from a number of other leaders on this webinar today, amongst not just your key leaders academically, but the broader institution. And why were those skills particularly relevant to your students?
Okay, so let me back here a little bit on the history of what I've been doing. No, I think for a long time, you know, we're always talking about, you know, the durable skills, the critical thinking, the entrepreneurship, but they didn't seem really to fit in our model. In a sense, in the speech, it did, yeah. But really, we were having trouble measuring this. You know, you always measure with the students that actually, you know, the employers tell you, well, these are things that we're finding in students. But really, we thought, how do we ensure that every single student comes out with these skills? You know, so in redefining some of these things, you know, we try to reduce our institutional learning outcomes. In a sense, you know, we have put a lot of the weight of our gen ed courses to actually develop these institutional learning outcomes that at the beginning, you know, there were like 9 or 10 of those. And then we try to reduce them. And in, you know, in that process of actually reducing our ILOs to basic things, you know, we came with this idea of these durable skills. And here I think, you know, the partnership with Minerva Project was really crucial in the sense that it actually allowed us to refine what these skills, what the courses should be, you know, what our ILOs should be, okay? So basically, you know, we ended up with 5 ILOs, which is, you know, critical thinking with, you know, the focus on claims and decision making, creative thinking with a focus on problem solving and ideation, effective communication with focus on communication analysis and communication strategies, citizen and global vision with focus on system thinking and personal principles, and effective interactions, you know, with a focus on collaboration and behavioral strategy. So, okay, we had this. So here it came, you know, the major intervention, the hard part of it. You know, it was trying to say, well, okay, we have this. We had agreed on this thing. So now, how do we do this and implement it in real courses? In courses that are not going to only be token courses, okay? Because sometimes, you know, we had this general ed courses. They were a little bit more like what you do really in liberal arts courses. You know, they were different than the professional skills. But we were really not honing in what they were supposed to achieve. So the idea was now, how do we build these courses that will interconnect with the professional skills? Because the professional skills, as much as ephemeral as they are, you know, they're important. So I think the major task here is how do you develop this? And you know, it is sometimes, and I do this analogy, if you want to do a curriculum from scratch, it's really like building a house. You know, so you have to wait, but at the end, you get a house that you move in and it's ready for your needs. Now, what we're trying to do now is like, we have this building and we want to do a major renovation. So where do you start? Because at the same time, you have to keep on teaching courses, keep on doing the things, that you usually do. So we figure, well, if we don't have foundations, we don't have strong foundations, these are the general ed courses, we cannot really build a successful curricular overhaul. So that's why we decided to focus on 4 courses, that will be taught by every single, it will be taken by every single student in a 1-year period, 2 courses a semester. And that will be not only the foundations of developing these durable skills that will be reinforced throughout the student journey, but also they will give a common framework for all our students. So to develop this idea of community, this sense of belonging. In fact, we created this program that we've called UDLA para la vida, which is UDLA for life. So, that's under this framework is why how we are moving.
So, Gonzalo, maybe a follow-up question for you. In addition to the 4 courses that you are offering the students at the beginning, I think Daniela asked in the chat here, are you doing intensive courses just focused on skills, or are you integrating? And it's actually both. So there's a very intentional introduction of the skills, both at UPC and UDLA, where there is, before we came on, Gonzalo and Edward and I were having a chat off camera about habit forming and behavior forming and how tough it is to break bad habits. But to form a habit, you have to be very intentional. You have to understand and practice and repeat and recontextualize and whatnot. And so, the traditional approach in higher ed has been to integrate. So to say, well, you maybe do a course on critical thinking or a boot camp on effective collaboration and communication, but both of you are decided to say, no, we're actually dedicating an entire semester. I guess the follow-on question is, for you in particular, Gonzalo, you're also training. How many faculty do you have altogether?
We have 1,200 faculty. 1,200,
right.
Half of them full-time, half of them part-time.
Right. So in addition to the faculty that will be getting fairly deep training around durable skills at the beginning, the other faculty are meant to reinforce this. And so they're getting training not only in the durable skills, they're going to learn the skills taxonomy, but they're also going to learn effective pedagogical practices and assessment and feedback practices. So speak a little bit about how you're using that to reinforce what is introduced in the foundational courses in the first semester.
So as you mentioned, when you really do like this course on critical thinking or this workshop on, creative thinking, it really doesn't work because there's a disconnection with what you're doing. So, as I said, this is the foundation. So we start with these courses. They're, whole year, they're reinforcing these habits, the skills. And the idea is now to scaffold to the other professional courses. Because if these things don't get reinforced after the first year, they'll get lost. So our goal is to train every single of our faculty members to use at whatever course they are teaching, the taxonomy, the skills to reinforce the habits. So they will be always there. It's like, but when I was a faculty member, long time ago, this idea about writing across the curriculum, okay? And it was, I was a math teacher. So, none of my colleagues wanted to do that. When they say, we're teaching math, so why do we have to do this? So the idea that we want is that every single of our faculty members should be skilled, should be trained in this new pedagogy and reinforce what our students had learned during the gen ed courses. Right. Otherwise, it doesn't.
I think, I'm being sensitive to the time, and there are 2 other topics I want to get to. And so one thing I'll say around this relates to the couple questions in the chat as well. I mean, the way we think about this is that, you're doing a very systematic introduction of these skills early on in the program. And then when you have a skills taxonomy, you're able to continue to weave those skills and provide ongoing feedback and assessment against them throughout the rest of the educational journey. And we think about the journey more than the formal instruction only. There is the experiential learning opportunity. There's the lived experience. There are internships and whatnot. And I think it's very important from a curricular reforms perspective to agree on a common set of skills, break them down into their component parts, systematically introduce them, and then reinforce and recontextualize as much as possible over time. But if you're not providing active feedback on them on a regular basis, then it's still a black box. I mean, this is one of the biggest problems we have in higher ed right now, where course A doesn't talk to course B, let alone course C, and it's left to the student to miraculously figure out how to, assimilate all this together. But when you have durable skills woven across, they do two things. Something that Gonzalo said, it provides a common language, a common framework. So the engineer has a basis for engaging with the economist or the linguist, but not because they both, all three of them are thinking around what it means to be a problem solver. They're developing tools around problem solving. And then it allows for interdisciplinarity much more effectively, because now this is the glue that binds together what are apparently separate subjects. So that said, what I really want to switch to now is we've explored a little bit about what's happening in both institutions and why. But these are massive change management exercises. And I imagine that, besides being rectors, you're chief transformation officers at your institutions as well. And so, Edward, I imagine that there are no shortage of internal and external hurdles. For instance, you're facing an imminent major El Nino, which has a massive impact on the country, let alone on your organization, your institution, let alone internal resistance from faculty at the scale that you're operating at, or even what is the resourcing required to even introduce just a few new courses. The scale you're operating at, that has a profound impact. So, I imagine we can spend an entire hour on the challenges and ways to solve them. But if you were to pick one or two of your major hurdles in achieving the type of transformation you're typing to achieve, what would they be, and how are you, as an innovative leader, successfully navigating through that right now?
Okay. Fortunately, El Nino is not as big an issue as we had expected by the end of last year, and that's good news for the country in general. And going in terms of hurdles, I believe culture is critical. The culture at the institution is critical if you want to implement change, and that is something. And probably Gonzalo agrees with me. The institutional accreditation we went through transformed the culture of our institutions. It allowed us to understand that there are always better ways of doing things, and gets everybody to understand their role in terms of not expecting transformation to come top down, but that transformation should come from within the institution at every level. So when everybody understands that, and everybody is open to change, and they seek change for the purpose of doing things better, more efficiently, with better results, to try to close gaps, it really helps. However, having said that, it's a monumental task to have everybody change the way they normally do things. We're fortunate that we have a competency-based model. We've been working with competencies for years. We train our faculty extensively every year to guarantee that they understand what you just mentioned. Know that you might be a math professor, we might have someone teaching Spanish writing, someone then teaching a business course or an engineering course. They all understand that they are part of a pathway, that they are building and developing the competencies in the students, and they have to understand their role in that process. Having said that, I believe that even though this is a big change, our faculty are ready for it. They understand the concepts. That is something that we've been exploring with your team, and but it is a large task, and we have to guarantee that everybody's on the same page. So it's change management, basic change management. I would say that is the greatest hurdle, but I'm comfortable that the team is ready for it, and they understand the purpose, and that is critical. They know why we want to do it. They have bought into the idea, and they understand that the impact they can have through this change can be enormous.
Fantastic. And similarly, Gonzalo, I mean, I imagine that, undertaking the types of transformations, this is not a light curricular reformation where you're, incorporating durable skills gently into the curriculum. You're shifting your entire first semester and retraining every single one of your faculty members. What is the change management lesson that you can share with everybody
let me
here?
tell you from the perspective, we're at 1 week to starting the project. I mean, you're actually going live into the classroom. So here's, what the major hurdles. Okay, basically, one was like the short time, and then the magnitude of the project. I mean, changing these things, and then the short time. Okay, so those were like abstract concepts. It put a lot of pressure on our faculty. We were doing just in a few months. We thought for a time about whether we were going to do it in March, whether we were going to do it in September. We decided that March was the date. It wasn't going to help us that much in solving the true problems. And we're probably going to lose the build-in that we have already been working on. Now, faculty, start with expressing apprehension about how our students are going to react. I wasn't so much, and I'm not so much worried about the students. But the substantial challenge really is changing the faculty mindset, and helping them adapt to the learning center focus. Okay. And I was having conversations with our faculty members, and they openly acknowledge the difficulty of this transition. In fact, one of our faculty members had a powerful analogy that said the following. It says, embracing this change is like trying to run a marathon while carrying a heavy backpack filled with our past experience and methodologies. Even when we think we have emptied the backpack, the weight of our habits and comfort zones still hold us back. So here's when you actually have the leadership team had to be aware of these things and try to address these issues, and always encourage them. Think about the change we're going to be achieving. We also have to do parallels for other challenges that we have seen before, and that they seem insurmountable at the time, and and that we came out with flying colors.
Yeah.
We also decided to involve all our deans and senior administrative members into teaching the courses. In fact, I am teaching one of the courses. Okay.
These are the new courses, the brand new
courses. One of the new courses.
You didn't designate these to faculty members within the departments. You said the first people teaching these courses, the deans are going to teach them.
Yeah, because otherwise, if they don't get involved right now, how do I have them involved later when I'm building the other levels of this building? So that has been a major, but what we wanted to do is signal that it is one of the most significant institutional projects for us into the future.
Yeah.
I mean, to give you an idea of the dimension of what we're doing right now. This coming week we're starting with classes with about 60 sections of each of the 4 courses, and that involves 120 faculty members right now, and we have achieved this in a short period of time. And I must really be thankful to the people at Minerva Project that has helped us put this together. But also I want to recognize this great team that I have, and all the effort that they have done. And I think we're ready. We have some trepidation in the future. We know we're going to find bumps, but I think with commitment, we're going to come out successful at the end of the semester.
Well, the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. I mean, what both of you have done is that I think, upstream of all of this is made a decision that now is the time. I think there's very few conversations you engage in a higher education setting today where there's disagreement with the need for more skills-based education, more interdisciplinary education, more effective pedagogy and assessment practices. But the ability to pull the trigger on it at scale is very difficult. I will say there are 2 ladies on this call here who are your secret weapons, Milagros and Marlena at the 2 institutions who, were not only part of our ongoing strategic and critical thinking conversations around what could possibly happen, but who helped to change manage internally. And I think one message that became very evident to us at Minerva was having the right leadership team around you and the right generals to then go out and I use the word general very broadly, marshal the troops. But there's an inspirational aspect to this as well. It's not just a big stick where you're saying we're doing this or not. It's, for instance, I know Gonzalo, Minerva wrote a book called Building the Intentional University, where we literally said exactly how we built Minerva University. It was published in 2017. You had your entire leadership team read the book, yes? Mm-hmm. And so carrying leaders with the change is obviously a critical lesson. Now, we are a couple of minutes over time. We're supposed to get into question and answer. So what I will ask the two of you to do in 1 minute, if you can, is a message to your peers. Originally, I was going to say to Edward, how would you measure the success? When all this is done and dusted, right? What does success actually look like? And for you, Gonzalo, what advice do you give to your peers on this call who are contemplating similar bold innovation, but are facing no end of challenges? Those challenges will not disappear anytime soon. What advice would you give them to break past that barrier? So Edward, you go first, please.
Okay, I believe it's critical to set KPIs, to define them. At the university, we never do anything unless we know exactly how we're going to end up measuring it. Measuring student success is not easy. It's not only about employability, it's also about the value the market gives to our graduates. We also measure that in terms of relative salaries and information on terms of graduate satisfaction with what they're doing, whether they believe that they are well equipped against their peers and well equipped to take advantage of the opportunities that come along their own professional pathways. But definitely for us, sort of short-term or midterm goals are improve retention, improve the graduation rate, and improve the graduate profile of our students, and then measure the other metrics that I mentioned before. I believe those are critical issues. In general, it's a recommendation never to embark on something unless you know exactly where you want to be in the future.
Absolutely. Before you answer, Gonzalo, to the audience members, please, we have 15 minutes for a chat. Start throwing some questions in the chat. I know there are a couple from earlier, and we answered them somewhat, but we can go back to them. But please do add any other questions. Gonzalo, final word over to you, and then we'll go into the Q&A.
Okay, so I think that, if you're going to undertake a great innovation process, I think the first thing for you to realize is that don't let the success of your past be the way that stops you. And I think this is true of universities in general. We've been always very successful for centuries. But I think that's a very serious risk right now. Okay, so forget about your successes. Don't let that be a weight, and move forward. Be bold. Sometimes you have to be bold. You have to take some calculated risks if you want to achieve change in a major way. And the other is, create a great team. Talk to your stakeholders, have them build in, have champions of change. And the other thing is, I think, don't try to do it alone. Okay? I think, there are lots of partners, academic, business partners, that can really help you and speed up. Because sometimes, in academia, we're trying to do things alone. And I think, for example, here, in this group that we are here, our Minerva partners have been very, very helpful. But we have a long, long history with Edward of talking a lot and doing things together and see what works and what doesn't work. We have worked together in our accreditation processes and in other things. And, that type of collaboration is key for substantial changes.
Yeah. We're in a moment in higher education. There is an existential threat. Artificial intelligence is becoming so pervasive, and there's a conference every year in April called ASU-GSV in the States, where all the new ed tech announcements and whatnot are made. And when you go there and you see how far in the frontier people and organizations are working right now, there is a tsunami that's coming down the pipeline in terms of the traditional model, the role of the professor, the approach to curricular design and delivery. And we're in a moment now where traditionally in higher ed, institutions are looking at each other and saying, well, are you going to go? Are you going to go? Because there's a lot of dialogue. Our industry is characterized by tremendous amount of collaboration and sharing and conferences and, you know, whatnot, thought leadership. But it's very rare where institutions step up of the queue and say, no, you know, I'm going to take the time, which is exactly why we're doing this type of a dialogue to share those lessons. So